Chalo. A very good morning to all of you. So we will continue with Index 12. The last few questions, relatively new questions, we would be discussing. So we'll go to question number 22. Now 22 and 21 are on similar lines. 22 is the exam question, 21 is the RTP question. There is a particular issue in the RTP question which has been kind of rectified in the exam question. So we'll first finish the exam question and then go to the RTP one. When you are revising, doing one of them should kind of suffice. So you can mark one of them as important. Let us say question 22. They appear on similar lines only. So what is this question? Following is a summarized statement of profit and loss of New Age Limited as per Ind AS for the year ended 31st March 2022. So this is the position as per Ind AS. Now you will have everything before. So your profit before tax is 770, sorry, your total expenses are 770, profit before tax is 750, current tax expense 211, and then you have profit after tax. Consider that income tax rate applicable to New Age Limited is 30%. Other expenses include the following expenses which are not deductible for income tax purposes. So your other expenses include some expenses which are not deductible. So that is penalties, donations, impairment of goodwill, they are not deductible for tax purposes. Acha, would they be deducted while calculating accounting profit? Yes. But are they deductible for tax? No. Other expenses also include expenditure on scientific research amounting to 10 lakhs in respect of which a 150% weighted deduction is available under income tax laws. So again over here there will be a weighted deduction available for this. Other income includes dividends of 5 lakhs which are exempt from tax, long-term capital gains of 12 lakhs which are taxable at the rate of 10%. So this is as a part of other income, point 4. Profit before tax of 75 lakhs includes agricultural income of 65 lakhs which is exempt from tax, profit of 75 lakhs earned in USA on which New Age has paid a tax rate of 20%. So it is like if you have paid that tax, you will not pay that tax again in India. Probably it is tax of the US on which tax has profit of US on which tax has already been paid. Under the review of financial statements of New Age Limited, the CFO multiplies the profit before tax by the income tax rate and arrived at 225 lakhs. So what did the CFO do? He did 750 into the tax rate, that is 30%, and on a simplified basis he came to 225. But is your current tax 225? That's 211.65. It is different. Why is it different? Well, there were various reasons as outlined above why it kind of becomes different. However, the actual income tax expenses appearing in the summarized statement of profit and loss is 211.65 as we discussed. You are required to help the CFO of the company reconciling the difference between the two tax expense amounts. Now this is kind of, I would say, similar to what you would have done in income tax. Like we have the accounting profit and from that you arrive at the taxable profit, or the question says you want to reconcile the two tax amounts. So over here, ideally if I go to question number 22 and you say tax based on accounting profit, tax based on accounting profit. So based on accounting profit, what is your accounting profit? You can start at either of the two. You can start at 211 or you can start at 250. So basically this was 750 into tax. So the question says reconcile the tax amount. So we will come to tax. So this is rupees. Acha, lakhs crores kya hai? Let's say rupees lakhs. This is 225. Now tell me one by one, if you take all of these points, point 2, will there be any difference in this versus the income tax due to these items, penalties, donations and impairment of goodwill? If I total all of these are disallowed. So this is 1.5, sorry, 63.5. So this comes to, let us say, 63.5 lakhs. Income tax ke andar, this would not have been allowed as a deduction. So will these expenses increase the tax as per income tax or will it reduce? Increase. Over here, plus tax impact. So let's say plus or minus, as I guess maybe tax impact of subpoint A, expenses disallowed. So if you have certain expenses which are disallowed, let us say that is 1.5 plus 55 plus 7. These are expenses, but the tax impact on that would be 30%. Because of this disallowance, I will have to pay more tax. Ideally, if they were allowed, I would have had to pay relatively lesser tax. They were deducted but in 750, but ideally, you don't get that deduction under income tax. So this is what? 63.5 into 30% comes to 19.05. Next, you have other expenses also include expenditure on scientific research amounted to 10 lakhs in respect of which a 150% deduction is available. Now, this amount is 10 lakhs. Income tax will give you a deduction of 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs, which means the additional 5 lakhs will help you in reducing tax or increasing tax. Reducing tax. So subpoint B, expenses additionally deductible. So what will I do? Will I do, let us say, 15 into 30%, 10 into 30% or 5 into 30%? 5. So 15 minus 10, that is equal to 5 into 30%. So this will be what? 1.5. This will help you in reducing your overall tax burden in the current tax. Okay, next, other income includes dividends of 5 lakhs which is exempted from tax. But when I do 220, when I do 750, उसके अंदर भी tax impact आ गया. Ideally, it is not taxable, so it will help me in reducing the tax or increasing the tax. Reducing long-term capital gains of 12 lakhs which are taxable at the rate of 10%. But when I do 750 into 30%, automatically as a part of this 750, even these capital gains are taxed at the rate of 30%. Ideally, they should be taxed at the rate of 10%. Apart from that, you also have agricultural income of 65 lakhs which is exempted from tax. So there are certain exempt incomes. Let us say there are exempt incomes. There are two exempt incomes. There is dividend income. How much is that? And agricultural income. How much is that? The tax impact on that is 30%. So 5 and 65, that is 70 into 30%, that is equal to 21. Now according to us, the tax should be 750 into 30%. Now as a part of this 750, these incomes are already there, but ideally, will that impact your tax? No. So should I add or should I reduce? Reduce. यहाँ पे पूरा गेम आपका addition या subtraction के ऊपर है. What to add, what to reduce. And lastly, there are certain incomes which are charged to tax at different rates. Incomes charged at different rates. So over here, there will be long-term capital gains. There will be LTCG. How much is the LTCG amount? 12 lakhs. This is taxable ideally at what rate? But in the above calculation, it is implicitly taxed at what rate? 30. So over here 12 into, what do we say? 30 minus 10 comes to what? So this is 2.4. In the above calculation, you have already taken the tax impact at 30%. Ideally, it should be at 10%. So will this increase my tax or reduce my tax? Reduce. Or US incomes. How much is the US income? 75 lakhs, which is taxable at 20%. You have already taken in the above working at 30%. So this is 75 lakhs into 30 minus 20. बराबर क्या नहीं? This equals to 7.5. What will you do? Minus. And as a result, if I consider all of these, I have taken everything. This is an exam question. If I consider all of these, you would have 225 plus 19.05 minus 1.5 minus 21 minus 2.4 minus 7.5. How much do you get? 211.65. So can I say this is reconciling with your current tax? So it is more of a tax sum, but it actually landed up in the exam. It had even come in the RTP, so it's good for a revision perspective. It's a reconciliation related question. Are we getting this? If I go to question number 21, it is exactly similar. to question 22, but there is one adjustment which is different, which in my opinion is not correct in your RTP question, and hence it has been removed while asking you in the main exam. We'll discuss that. Let us review this. Question 21. Following is a summarized statement of P&L of Earth as per Ind AS. We have been given this entire income statement. यहाँ पे अगर अपन देखें, there is current tax of 165, there's a deferred tax of 1.5, and there's a profit before tax of 594. You have been given that the corporate income tax rate is 30%. So ideally, if I go to see, if the same question type were to be applied, if I do 594 into 30%, it should ideally come to what? 178.2, but actually कुछ और ही आ रहा है. So we'll probably reconcile. It's almost similar adjustment. ये अपन orally discuss कर लेंगे. Other income including long-term capital gains of 10 crores which are taxable at the rate of 10%. What will I do? I will do 10 crores into, let's say, 30 minus 10. What will I do? This will ultimately reduce or increase? Reduce. Answer is 2. This will reduce my tax burden as compared to what I would have calculated. Other expenses include the following which are not tax deductible. Again, if I total all of this, this is 51. 51 into 30% will come to what? 15.3. Acha, will this increase my tax burden or reduce my tax burden? Increase. Perfect. You will add. Other expenses include research and development of 8 crores in respect of which a 200% weighted deduction is available. So 200%. Okay. So this is basically, ideally you will get an additional deduction of 8 crore. 8 mila hai, another 8. 8 into 30% will come to what? 2.4. Increase or reduce? Reduce. Reduce it by 2.4. Other income includes dividend of 4 crores which is exempted from tax. So this is 4 crores again into 30% comes to 1.2. Will this help me increase or reduce my tax? Reduce. Perfect, because this is exempt and hence it will not be taxable. So it will reduce. Profit before tax of 594 includes agriculture income of 55 crores which is exempted from tax. Same working. 55 into 30% comes to, I think, 16.5 will help me reduce my tax. And profit of 60 crores earned in USA on which Earth is required to pay tax at the rate of 20%. So over here, this is 60 into 30 minus 20, that is equal to 6. Again, this will help me in reducing, because ideally मेरे calculation में वो 30 पे चला गया. It should be taxed only at the rate of 20. Now this is a new adjustment which was not there in the earlier problem. Otherwise, it is the exact same of the exam paper. Depreciation as per income tax law is 25 crores. Acha, depreciation and amortization over here is 30 crores as per books. So is there a difference? Will that actually impact your taxations? Yes, it should impact your tax. Further, will it also create a deferred tax adjustment? It should ideally. Okay. Let us see what is asked over here. During the review of financial statements of Earth, the CFO multiplied the profit before tax by the income tax rate and arrived at 178, which is 594 into 30%. However, actual income tax expense appearing in the summarized statement of P&L is 166. CFO has sought your help in reconciling the difference between the two tax expense and prepare a reconciliation showing the disclosure as required by the Ind AS. So over here, it is similar to question number 22 except for this depreciation adjustment. So everything else, if you go to see, is kind of similar. So you will have all of these items and you ultimately land up with this 165 based on the data given. If you go to see, ideally यहाँ पे अगर आप देखें, you will start at what? The simplified profit, that is, you will start at 178.2. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? And 178.2 on your calculator, to that you will subtract 2 rupees. Then you will add 15.3 rupees. Subtract 2.4. Subtract 1.2. Subtract 6. Subtract 16.5. And do we land up with 165.4? As given over here, do we land up with 165.4? So this would give you your number based on what is printed. In my opinion, that has a flaw again. Why? Because ideally if depreciation is different, उसके ऊपर deferred tax होएगा, agreed, but that will definitely impact current tax. I'll again repeat, if I am trying to reconcile the current tax, income tax expense, that is current tax reported in the statement of P&L, how can it be 165.4? दिया हुआ है, hence exam question में उसको निकाल दिया है, and rightly so. Ideally, additionally, one should have said that in the income tax, I will have a separate deferred tax adjustment. So ideally, after doing all of these adjustments, you would say that when you calculated your tax of 178.2, in that calculation 30 was deducted, but ideally as per income tax only 25 would have been deducted. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? Yes or no? So ideally whatever you calculate, the tax impact on differential depreciation would be, well, in the books you have taken 30 ka deduction, under income tax you have taken 25 ka deduction, and as a result income tax has a shorter deduction. Shorter deduction means more tax. So ideally this should have been 5 into 30%. This is what? 1.5. And जो भी आपका नंबर आता है plus 1.5 should have been your final current tax in my opinion. Further depreciation among everything else is a temporary difference. Everything else, as you read above, was other than temporary. The penalties, impairment of goodwill, weighted deduction, capital gains, dividend being exempt, all of these are other than temporary difference. But depreciation is very much a temporary difference, and because of that, we will undoubtedly create a deferred tax. Sir, what will that result into? Well, if I go to see, your depreciation as per books is greater, income tax is lower. If depreciation as per books is greater, income tax depreciation is lower, that means we are getting a lesser deduction now, but probably, I mean, you can think of it various ways. So over here, depreciation as per books is higher, income tax is lower. So that will, if I look at carrying value and tax base, we'll say कि in the future I will get a higher deduction because अभी मेरे को कम deduction मिला. So that will result in I getting a high deduction in the future, and hence ideally it should result into a deferred tax asset. So over here, additionally, this will impact your current tax, and additionally, for deferred tax, there would be a deferred tax asset in my opinion. So deferred tax asset account debit, या फिर if there was a deferred tax liability earlier created, the deferred tax liability will reverse. In any case, you will have a DTA or DTL debit to deferred tax expenses which will be credited to the profit and loss. So this will probably be 30 minus 25. We don't know the actual PP balances. So this will be the cause of difference, 5 rupees into 30%, and this will be a deferred tax. So basically 1.5 and 1.5 credit. Now institute has actually taken that, but the way the sum is constructed, they have added this. So this is a deferred tax expense. Ideally, when a deferred tax asset is created, ये 1.5 minus होना चाहिए, and it has to be that 1.5 should be subtracted. Sir, why? The journal entry is deferred tax asset account debit to deferred tax expense, and the deferred tax expense will be credited to the P&L. This is something where income tax is giving you a lesser deduction now, so you are paying more tax now. So in the future, if the PP value is the same, you will pay lesser tax in the future, because you will get more deduction in the future. Let us say PP आपका 100 रुपए का था, 100 में से books is giving you depreciation of 30, income tax is giving you depreciation of 25. So in the future, income tax will give you a further depreciation of 75, books will give you depreciation of only 70, and hence 5 का higher deduction आएगा. It's a deferred tax asset. Being a deferred tax asset, that should be subtracted. So 1.5 यहाँ पे less आना चाहिए. It is 1.5 undoubtedly. So when you see the solution, they say deferred tax in relation to depreciation and amortization is 1.5, but they are showing this as deferred tax expense, which in my opinion is incorrect. It is not an expense, it is kind of a reduction from expenses. So this sum would have been perfect provided, in my opinion, यहाँ पे 166.9 आना चाहिए. In RTP में ऐसा नहीं है, and hence because of this problem, institute when it asked you the same sum, if you go to see, this is RTP November 22, the next was main exam November 22. It is back to back, but institute realized and they did not ask you that depreciation adjustment in the main exam because the numbers were not correctly given. So ideally in my opinion, this number should have been 166.9. this number should be a negative 1.5 and hence ultimate effect should have been 165.4, then everything would have properly reconciled. But अभी ऐसा है नहीं, अगर आप RTP खोल के देखें. So I'm pretty sure if it comes in the main exam, they're cognizant of the fact that there is a difference. Otherwise exact same question आता है और उसमें सिर्फ एक ही adjustment नहीं आता depreciation का. That is because it was kind of realized that that mistake is there and hence they've removed it. So if this main exam comes, if this adjustment comes, I'm pretty sure you will see a 166.9 current tax which has taken into consideration the difference and a minus 1.5 for deferred tax. Ultimate effects remaining the same. Will be reduced from deferred tax. So this number will not be an expense. In fact, it will be a reduction from expense. Okay, so that takes care of. And temporary difference. If it is not taxable now, will be taxable in the future, then temporary. Okay. So that is question 21 and 22. 21 has this problematic deferred tax adjustment. So if you want, you can just put a reference note for this. Write down a reference note in 21. Adjustment for depreciation does not appear to be correctly done. Does not appear to be correctly done. बस उतना ही लिखा है. The adjustment for depreciation does not appear to be correctly done. Okay. Next you go to question number 23. This is a slightly different question, okay. Over here what will happen is, you will acquire a PP and for example for that PP there will be no tax impact. For example, it is like saying that you buy a PPE for 100 rupees. Ideally on this 100 rupees, books will give you deduction in the form of depreciation. Income tax will also give you deduction in the form of depreciation. But let us say the question tells you that this PP is not taxed. There are going to be no tax consequences on this 100 rupees. Then will you create any deferred tax? No. If the question tells you that this 100 has no tax consequences, then you will not create any deferred tax, even if rates are different. So there may be some asset that you are using for a, like hypothetically, okay, there may be some asset which you are using for a business where it does not allow you to claim depreciation as per income tax laws, in which case, even if you are recording in books or maybe as per income tax, if the question tells you it is not deductible, it is not deductible. It may be based on a special income tax law. However, what is not deductible is only the 100 rupees. It is very much possible that if this asset of 100 is sold at 140, the 40 rupees capital gains, does that mean that 100 का tax deduction नहीं मिल रहा है, तो 40 का capital gains will also not be taxable? Is that necessary? No. Can the 40 capital gains be taxable? Yes, and as a result, there is a possibility. There is a possibility that in case the question does a revaluation, we have done question number 11, sub point 2 and question number 20. These are two questions where a PP has been revalued, and whenever a PP has been revalued, on the revalued part, is there a deferred tax adjustment? Is there a possibility of a deferred tax adjustment? Yes. So this is a one and the only question on these lines where on the main 1 lakh, the question tells you there will be no tax consequences, but then it does not tell you that on the gain on sale, etc., there are no tax consequences. So if there is a revaluation, we will say revaluation has been recorded in the books. Now, in income tax, when this asset is sold, there would be a gain on the sale of this asset, and you will put a tax consequence on that through the OCI. But a slightly different type of a question, you can mark this as important. On 1st April 2011, an entity is paying tax at the rate 30% acquired, underline, this is a new adjustment, acquired on non-tax deductible office building. On 1st April 11, an entity which is paying tax at the rate 30% acquired on non-tax deductible office building. Now usually this office building would be tax deductible. Question tells you non-tax, so you have to respect that. If it is non-tax deductible, then on this 1 lakh, will there be any tax consequences? No, there will be no tax consequences. No current tax consequences, no deferred tax consequences. For 1 lakh in circumstances which Ind AS 12 prohibits the recognition of deferred tax liability associated with temporary difference of 1 lakh. Question very clearly says that if there is any difference which arises due to this 1 lakh, there is no need to create any deferred tax liability. So, will you create a deferred tax liability? No. The building is depreciated over 10 years at the rate rupees 10,000 per year to a residual value of 0. But will that 10,000 be eligible for deduction under income tax? No. The entity's financial year ends on 31st March. Achha, does books of accounts care whether it is, does books of accounts really care whether it is allowed for income tax or no? They will still record the asset. On 1st April 12, the carrying amount of the building is 90,000. Achha, does that logically make sense? How is it 90? 1 lakh minus 10,000 of depreciation. And it is revalued upwards by 45,000 to its current market value of 1,35,000. Okay. There is no change on the estimated residual value of 0 or to the useful life of the building after evaluation. Determine the carrying amount, the depreciation for the year ended 31st March 13 and deferred tax thereafter till the useful life of the building. Further analyze the treatment and impact of deferred tax since 31st March 13 till the useful life of the building. So over here there are various ways in which you can solve, but if you go to see question number 23, if I look at year 0, this is basically I think 1st April 2011 when the asset was acquired. As per Ind AS, what will be the carrying value? Step 1 carrying value, step 2 tax base, what is the carrying value? As per Ind AS. Will I still show this as 1 lakh? Yes, but under income tax, how much will this be? 0. Why? Because as per the tax balance sheet, I am not going to give any deduction for this 1 lakh rupees. Are barabar ke nahi? On the tax balance sheet, there will be no deduction for 1 lakh. So technically, there is a difference of 1 lakh rupees on which ideally a deferred tax should be charged. But question आपको क्या बोल रहा है? It says in circumstances which Ind AS 12 prohibits the recognition of a deferred tax liability associated with the temporary differences of 1 lakh. So would you charge any deferred tax? So there will be no deferred tax on this item. When I go to year 1, that is on 31st March 12, this will become 90,000. Your tax base is still 0. The difference is 90,000. Is this 90,000 still a part of this 1 lakh? Will you charge any deferred tax on that? Well, no, there will be no deferred tax charged over here. Are we clear with this? So over here, there would be no deferred tax which will be charged. But when I go to year 1, that is 31st March 2012, after revaluation, what does this balance come up to? Can I say tax base is still 0? Are yes or no? So what is the total difference coming up to be? 1,35,000. Total difference is 1,35,000. Out of which we can say what is not taxable. What is not taxable? Well, the entire 1 lakh is not taxable, and hence there is no further deferred tax consequence. Out of this, the entire 90,000 is not taxable, and hence there is no deferred tax consequence. अच्छा यहाँ पे क्या अपन बोल सकते हैं entire 1,35,000 is not taxable? No, the question very categorically tells you that 1 lakh is not to be considered for deferred tax, which does not mean that the additional 45,000 is not to be considered. It will be considered. So hypothetically, if the asset is sold the very next day, probably income tax will charge you tax on this 45,000. Books has already revaluated and recognized it, and hence यहाँ पे अपन less क्या करेंगे? 90. What you will less is going to be 90, and hence if I see the taxable temporary difference, the taxable temporary difference in the first two cases was nothing. Now the taxable temporary difference is how much? 45. Acha, this is the taxable temporary difference, right? Because the carrying value is greater than the tax base, so this will create a deferred tax. Deferred tax what? Liability. Acha, what is the tax rate given? At the rate 30%. So 45,000 into 30% comes to what? 13,500. Are we clear with this? Yes. Okay. When I go to year 2, this is, let us say, 31st March 13. Achha, in the books of accounts, will the depreciation still continue? At what amount will that be? If I want to calculate the carrying value, will it still be? Will this still be 10,000? Achha, if you, it should be 15,000. 1,35,000 will now be depreciated over the remaining 9 years, out of which 1 year has gone by. Because ultimately it has to come down to a residual value of 0. If the ledger balance is 1,35,000, if it has to come down to a residual value of 0, the depreciation should have been 15,000. Are barabar ke nahi? And as a result, if I go to see, this will be less 15,000. And hence, this is what? 135 minus 15 comes to what? 1,20,000. So the tax base is still how much? 0. So difference is now 1,20,000 technically. Now out of this, how much do you think? यहाँ पे वापस प्रॉब्लम आएगा. How much do you think is not eligible for a tax purpose? Will the entire 90,000, will 90,000 not be eligible for tax purpose? Think and tell me. जैसे पहले 1 lakh का value था, 1 lakh was not eligible, then it depreciated by 10,000. Income tax में भी ये same base रहेगा, and hence we said 90,000 is not eligible. Had this revaluation not been there, would there still be some depreciation? How much would that be? How much would that be? 10 or 15? 10. Now it is how much? 15. But had there been no, then how much would that be? 10,000. Which means if I reduce this, this will be reduced by what? 80,000. Okay. This would be 80,000, and hence the difference left now is how much? 40. So the deferred tax liability would be, for example, 40 into 30%, this is what? 12,000. So what is happening is, conceptually, you first said that there was a revaluation of 45,000. Because of that revaluation of 45,000, there is a difference. But now, when you look at depreciation, because of the depreciation in the books, you are having a 15 depreciation vis-a-vis 10,000. And as a result, out of that 45, 5 is already reversed. So बचा हुआ difference is still just 40. करते करते ultimately तो difference 0 हो जाएगा. If the asset becomes after 10 years, like for example, if this same pattern continues, year 3, if I go to year 3, ये कितना आ जाएगा? 1,05,000, this is 0, this is 1,05,000, and out of 1,05,000, this you will subtract what? 70, and as a result the difference will be 35. 35 के ऊपर अगर अपन लगाए तो this will be, I think, 10,500. Ultimately, after let us say 10 years, your books will show a 0 balance. In any case, taxman there will be 0 balance. So the difference of 45 which was created is getting reversed. 45,000 is getting reversed as 5,000 each year into 9 years. The entire 45,000 will be reversed in the form of depreciation. So over here, if you go to see, there would be unrecognized temporary difference, that is 90, 80. So they have done this working directly. 1 lakh 35, 1 lakh 20, 1 lakh. So for all of these years, and we can do this for the first 3 years, and agio same process can be continued. Are we clear with this? So why is the tax base taken as 0? Because the question tells you that this is not tax deductible. This office building is not tax deductible, and because it is not tax deductible, what is tax base? The base that you use for the purpose of claiming a tax deduction. In this case, for this 1 lakh, you don't get any tax deduction, and hence the tax base is to be taken as nil over here. In other cases, you do get a tax deduction, and hence tax base would be taken as 1 lakh. Here, the question tells you that it does not give you any tax deduction. Are we clear with this? Yes. So if you want, you can just note this down as a reference note. Write down. Reference note. Point 1. We have been told. We have been told that building is not tax deductible. Building is not tax deductible up to 1 lakh, and hence tax base is nil. Point 2. It is nowhere told that gain on building is not taxable. And hence on a revaluation at year 1 for 45,000, DTL will be created. अच्छा, यहाँ पे question is probably not asking you to pass the entries, but this DTL will be routed through the OCI because it is on revaluation. Revaluation would have gone through OCI. DTL will be created, full stop. Further, comma, in each year, comma, due to additional depreciation of 5,000 into bracket 15 minus 10 bracket closed, the DTL would reverse. The DTL would reverse. Are we clear with this? Acha. So that takes care of question number 23. Next you go to question number 24, 25, 26. These three questions are from the institute study material. You have a fairly detailed example which the institute builds up through three questions where it helps you in calculating the tax, then identifying what is the carrying value and tax base, and then also finding the differences. So these are, these are not probably going to land up in the same form in the exam, but the adjustments, if you do, you should have a better clarity, and these are fairly detailed illustrations which are now added in the May 24 material. It was probably not there in the earlier institute material. So these are illustrations which the institute has given for your overall understanding. We'll have a broad understanding of this and proceed. So we'll review 24, 25, 26 kind of together. H is a manufacturing company wanting to calculate its taxable profit or loss for the year ended 31st March 18. Again, H is a manufacturing company wanting to calculate its taxable profit or loss for the year ended 31st March 18. The statement of profit and loss and other comprehensive income and the balance sheet and notes are given below. The statement of P&L and OCI and balance sheet and notes are given below. The tax rate for the financial year 17-18 is 30%, but the new tax rate is 32% for the year 18-19 and beyond, and has already been enacted before the year end. So ideally, the rate that you should take should be 30 or 32? 32. That is right, because it is enacted. For deferred tax, for deferred tax calculation 32, but for current tax calculation 30. Calculate taxable profit for the year 17-18 and related current tax expense. यार current tax कितने पे लगेगा? 30%. Deferred tax कितने पे लगेगा? 32. So, you have this entire balance sheet given. If you go to see, there are a lot of items in the balance sheet, and again a small statement of profit and loss also given. Notes: depreciation expense for the financial year 17-18 allowable as per income tax rules is 72 lakh 10, and the depreciation is allowed for the purpose of financial reporting in operating expenses 59 lakh 50. Acha. Cost of BP is 5 crore 60 and deductible expenses of 1 crore 45 60 in its tax returns have already been deducted prior to the year 17-18. Further, as of 31st March 18, H for the first time revalued its property, plant and equipment to the market value of 4 crore 20. The revaluation surplus is 30 lakh 80. Now, ultimately, if I go to see at the end of बहुत सारे adjustments there, but at the end of it, what is asked? Well, you have been told that the question is prepared for purpose of understanding the computation of current tax and is no way linked to the provisions of income tax. For the purpose of financial reporting, tax treatments as told in the question should be given. In subpoint 1, what is asked? If you go to see, calculate taxable profit for the year 17-18 and the related current tax expense. ये पूरे क्वेश्चन को पकड़ के अपने को क्या कैलकुलेट करना है? टैक्स एक्सपेंस. सो इट इज लाइक क्वेश्चन 22 which had come in the main exams or RTP question, but this is a much more detailed question as compared to that. बराबर क्या नहीं? क्वेश्चन 22 जो अपने आज किया. If I go to question 25, what is 25 asking? Based on the balance sheet and notes from the previous question, calculate tax base of assets and liabilities as on 31st March 18. Balance sheet has been adjusted by current tax expense and liability now in question 25. तो ये क्वेश्चन आगे जाके आपको टैक्स बेस पूछ रहा है क्या है. सो देयर item by item, this will be a very good practice on your tax base working. And question number 26 says, based on the data from the above question 24, calculate temporary differences and deferred tax. From 24, tax rate was 30, but the new rate is 32% and it has already been enacted. So can I say all of them are a part of a similar question? And इतना बड़ा question आपके exam में आने से रहा, but 1122 adjustments can very well come in a question like 22 which had come. So that is why we are including it, which is there in the May 24 material. So let us say over here, if we review this question, what is happening? Acha, first question 24 is not asking you to calculate any tax base or anything. It is first asking you to calculate profit and then tax. So we will probably take that. So what is the current profit as per accounting? As per accounts, what is the profit before tax given to you? So this is, let us say, accounting profit. It is like an income tax question. We are now studying DT. Over here it is like that. सिर्फ DT में ऐसा है कि भाई this treatment you have to know. Here the treatment is given आपको accordingly देना है. So this is accounting profit. Before tax बोले ना आप? Before tax. How much is that? 50,000. अच्छा, what will you do? In for the first adjustment इतना सारा चीज हो रहा है. For the current year I have to look at current year depreciation only. What is the current year depreciation as per books? What will I do? I will add back, and then what will I do? Deduct depreciation as per income tax. So add back, let us say depreciation as per books, and then subtract the depreciation as per income tax. Number फटाफट बोल दो मेरे को. 5950 and less 7210. अच्छा, what has happened in the past? will help you to calculate the current carrying value and the current tax base, which will be needed in the subsequent question, not currently required. Past में जो हुआ है, that is relevant for calculating the tax base, not for the purpose of carrying value. Are we clear with this? Question क्या बोला है? Cost of PP is 5 crore 60 and H has deducted expense of 1 crore 45 60 in its tax returns prior to the year 1718, and for the first time H revalued its property to fair value of 4 crore 20. So revaluation surplus is 30 lakh 80. So basically if I had to calculate tax base, I would have said that the property originally was 5 crore 60. तो books लो या income tax लो, deduction तो इतना ही मिलेगा. And out of which in the prior years 1 crore 45 lakh 60,000 was deducted. Further in the current year 72 lakh 10,000 is deducted, but revaluation is also done. But is the revaluation considered by income tax? No. So 55 crore 60 minus 145 60 minus 72 lakh 10. If I go to see, this is probably what? 3 crore 42 lakh 30,000. Generally, if I take on a simplistic base for the tax base calculation, what does the word tax base mean? The amount appearing in tax balance sheet. भाई बुक्स में क्या दिख रहा है? बुक्स में PP 4 crore 20 पे दिख रहा है. दिस इज कैरिंग वैल्यू एज पर इंड एस. इसके अंदर डेप्रिसिएशन भी गया है, रिवैल्यूएशन भी गया, एवरीथिंग इज गॉन, बट इनकम टैक्स डज नॉट कंसिडर दैट. सो इफ आई लुक एट क्वेश्चन 25 एट द एंड ऑफ द डे, देखो यहाँ पे टैक्स बेस कितना आ रहा है? 3 crore 42 lakh 30,000 एज वी कैलकुलेट. समझा कहाँ से? देयर इज अ वर्किंग नोट गिवन ओवर हियर, बट नाउ दैट वी आर स्टडीइंग दिस एडजस्टमेंट, साथ में अपने इसका इंपैक्ट रिव्यू कर सकते हैं. एंड ऑनेस्टली ये दोनों के बीच में का जो डिफरेंस आएगा, दैट विल गिव राइज टू अ डिफर्ड टैक्स एज वेल. अरे यस और नो? अकॉर्डिंग टू यू, इफ आई काइंड ऑफ लुक एट ऑल द थ्री इन अ सीक्वेंस, आपको समझ में आ रहा है नहीं? सो इफ आई लुक एट ऑल ऑफ दिस इन अ सीक्वेंस, दिस इज अ कैरिंग वैल्यू एज पर इंड एस, दिस इज टैक्स बेस, दिस इज फॉर एन अंडरलाइंग एसेट. फॉर एन एसेट, if your ind AS value is greater than the tax base, the answer will be opposite and hence you will create what? DTL. अच्छा, DTL कौन से रेट पे निकलेगा? 32%. So if I take the difference, 420 minus 342, 30 into what rate? 32%. This will come to probably 24 lakh 86,400. समझा क्या किया? अच्छा, what did they do? If you go to question 26, the difference 4 crore 20 and tax base, that is, this is step 1 in your working, step 2 in your working, step 3 in your working, and then step 4. Step 4 आपने 32% पे निकाला. This is 24 lakh 86,400. Are we able to understand the mechanics here? या आप रिव्यू कर लो चलेगा. You don't have to sit and solve this entirely. If you even review this while preparation, there is a suggestion I don't see this entire question coming, but one adjustment, and that for only PP, all the three aspects they can ask you. They can say, tell me what is the current tax impact, what is the deferred tax impact, what is tax base. तो ये पूरा flow of events for a particular adjustment you should be aware. यहाँ पे 10 adjustment देकर रखे. Are we clear with this? Are we able to link through? Okay, so your point 1 is done for all the three questions. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? नेक्स्ट यू गो टू पॉइंट 2. इन 14-15 H incurred प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट कॉस्ट. 14-15, अच्छा बैलेंस शीट कब का है? 31 March 18. इन 14-15 H incurred प्रोडक्ट डेवलपमेंट कॉस्ट ऑफ 35 lakhs. These costs were recognized as an asset and amortized over a period of 10 years. Probably this is like intangible asset. For tax purposes, H fully deducted the full development cost when they were incurred in the year 14-15. अच्छा, तो in my current working, पहले तो current tax के लिए लेते हैं. I must have claimed a deduction of 35 lakhs divided by 10. In my books of accounts, I must have shown an amortization of 3,50,000 in the current year. Will income tax again give me a 3,50,000 deduction in the current year? आप ना बोल रहे हो, why no? It must have given me a deduction way back in 14-15. So what will I do for the purpose of profit? Add back amortization of PDC, product development cost. How much will that be? 3,50,000. Are we clear with this? Aja. So if I go to see in my books, my carrying value is coming to be 21 lakhs. By every year 3,50,000 करके less होके आ रहा है. In your understanding, what should be the tax base? In this case, what will be the tax base? 0. Why? In the tax balance sheet, nothing would be appearing. Why? Because sir, uska pass mein deduction mil gaya. Pass mein deduction mil gaya, so nothing would be appearing. Arey, but books mein 21 is appearing. So the difference between 21 and 0, we will say carrying value is greater than the tax base. Answer is opposite. It will be a deferred tax liability. Sir, why deferred tax liability? As you can see, in the current year, this is making us pay a higher tax as compared to books. Why? Because income tax mein pass mein deduction claim kar diya, but in all of these years, you will not be able to claim a deduction and hence you will have to pay a higher tax. So there will be a deferred tax liability as each year on 3,50,000 you pay higher tax. The deferred tax liability keeps on falling. Are dots connecting? Yes, okay. So over here, this is 3,50,000. If I go to see in question 25, product development cost carrying value is 20. ये तो सीधा books में ही दिखेगा. Carrying value में कोई बड़ा बात नहीं. Ind AS balance sheet is given. Unless there is an error, that is the same value you take. And tax base is 0, and hence there will be a deferred tax liability. 21 lakhs into 32%. Are we clear with this? अच्छा, देखो यहाँ पे accounting depreciation is added back, 3,50,000 is also added back. That 72,10,000 is subtracted at the end. Point 2 is fully done. Then you go to point 3. Trading investments were acquired in the preceding year at a cost of 80,50,000. These investments are classified as fair value through profit and loss and thus recognized at their fair value. The fair value adjustments are not allowable by tax authorities. Acha, they were acquired at a cost of how much? 80,50,000. Does income tax allow you fair value adjustments? No. So ideally your tax base should be how much? 80,50,000. But balance sheet में आप देखोगे तो 80,50,000 नहीं दिखेगा. अच्छा, let us see the balance sheet. How much do I see? Trading investments 72,80,000. Does income tax allow you that? No. But in books, if this is 72,80,000 and accounted using FVTPL, 80,50,000 minus 70,80,000 must be 7,70,000. This 7,70,000 must have been shown as an expense in the books. Fair value loss. Investment would have been credited. P&L would have been debited. By how much would it be debited? 7,70,000. Would income tax also consider the 7,70,000? No. So what will we have to do? Add back. Fair value loss 7,70,000 you add back. Arey, but is this difference temporary? Yes, because when the sale happens, income tax will give you deduction, but not now. आप पहले बेचो, loss book करो and I will give you deduction. So will this be a base for the purpose of deferred tax calculation? Yes. You guys tell me. The carrying value will be the balance sheet value. The carrying value will be the balance sheet value. For example, 72,80,000. But tax base, as you guys rightly said, was the 80,50,000. तो अगर मैं difference निकालूँ तो exactly वही आएगा 7,70,000. But because of this difference, in the future you will get a tax reduction. That is, you will pay a lesser tax in the future. So ये क्या create करेगा? DTA. Sir, conceptually that is right. Rule wise, well, carrying value is less than the tax base. Answer is in the same direction. DTA बनता है. So this is a deductible temporary difference. 7,70,000 deductible temporary difference at the rate 32. Are we able to make sense? Acha. Next you go to point number 4. Now this is a fairly tricky point. जैसे ये point main exam में आ सकता है in a relatively smaller question. Please pay attention over here. Now the bad debt provision. The bad debt provision amounts to 45,50,000. Let us look at the balance sheet. Do we see a bad debt provision separately anywhere? No, but it must be included probably in the trade receivable number. The bad debt provision amounts to 45,50,000 and relates to two debtors, that is debtor A 28 lakhs. Receivable originates in 15-16 and 100% provision was already recognized in the preceding year. So is a new bad debt loss recorded in the current year? No, it was already, the bad debt provision was already there in the preceding year. And debtor B 17,50,000, receivable originates in 16-17 and 100% provision was recognized in the year 17-18. So if I look at my income statement in the current year, while preparing my income statement, how much bad debt loss has gone in the current year P&L as per your understanding? Not 4550? No, why? Because earlier year would have recorded, so in my current year P&L, I can say 17 lakh 50 would have gone. Okay? Tax law allows deduction of 20% of the provision for debtors overdue for more than 1 year, another 30%, so an additional 30% overdue for more than 2 years, and remaining 50% for debtors overdue for more than 3 years. तो ये देखो, ये थोड़ा खतरनाक adjustment है. Now ideally this is not something that we have studied earlier, but it can very well come in a regular question. So what is to be done? So if I look at debtors over here, first of all, like I add back the depreciation as per books and subtract depreciation as per income tax. In a similar way, I will subtract the provision for bad debts which is recorded in the year 17-18 as per books, and whatever is the additional provision to be recorded as per income tax, I will deduct. अच्छा, बुक्स में कितना आपने ऐड 1750, but then you will have to subtract the additional provision which is allowed as per income tax. This you will have to find. Now how will you do that? Now the question says, please pay attention, tax law allows a deduction of 20% of debtors overdue for more than 1 year, and another 30% for overdue more than 2 years, and the remaining 50% for overdue for more than 3 years. So if I look at a working for this, let us say I look at debtor A. Debtor A originated in which year? 15-16. So debtor A originated in the year 15-16. So when 16-17 happens, it is now already overdue for 1 year. Are barabar kya nahi? Unfortunately, they have not given you the exact date when that debtor originates, and hence there is some scope for ambiguity. But when I look at the start of the year is 31st March 17 opening provision, end of the year is 31st March 18 closing provision. At the start of the year, if I look at 31st March 17, what can I say? This debtor has been overdue for how many years? 15-16 का origination है. So if I assume that it originates at the start of 15-16, then 15-16, 16-17, 2 years. If I assume that it originates at the end of 16-17, at 15-16, then overdue for 1 year. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? So over here, let us say we can say that in this case it is overdue for more than 1 year. It may be originating somewhere in the middle of the year as well, which is the most reasonable assumption. So we can say that this is overdue for more than 1 year, but less than 2 years. 15-16 में अगर ये originate हुआ है, ये 15-16 में ही हुआ है ना, then we can say that up to 31st March 17, that is the start of the year, maybe it is originated in the middle of 15-16, April, May, June, July, कोई भी month में. So it is overdue for more than 1 year, but not overdue for more than 2 years, unless hypothetically it is originated on the very first day. So over here, your opening provision for bad debt that you must have created would be how much? Your opening provision for bad debt would have been 20%, because it is overdue for more than 1 year. So this is 20% on what is the debtor amount? Now when it comes to 31st March 18, अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? It is now overdue for how many years? Overdue for more than 2 years, but less than 3 years. So what will be the provision? Your provision will नहीं 30% नहीं, 28 lakhs के ऊपर 20% तो रहेगा ही, an additional 30%. It is not total 30%, it is another 30%. And as a result, this is a total of 50% का provision आपने create किया होगा. So over here opening में you might be having 28 lakhs into 20%, just for your understanding 5 lakh 60. In the closing you will have 5 lakh 60 plus during the year an additional provision of what? 8,40,000, and hence your total would be what? 14 lakhs. Basically इतना लंबा वर्किंग करने के बदले we can always say that during the year another 30% will be allowed. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? This is for debtor A. If I go to see for debtor B, how are things changing? Well, debtor B is originating in which year? 16-17, which means as on 31st March 17, can I say this was overdue for less than 1 year? And hence would income tax require any provision? No. But when I come to 31st March 18, can I say it is overdue for more than 1 year but less than 2 years? So will income tax allow any provision? How much would that be? 20%. 20% of what? 17 lakh 50. This comes to what? 3 lakh? No? 3 lakh 50. And hence, if I go to see during the year, so during the year, your total provision is how much? During the year, you have provided 8,40,000 and during the year you have provided 3,50,000. Are barabar kya nahi? So your provision is how much? 1190. So this is 11,90,000 allowable as per income tax. ये दोनों आपने ड्यूरिंग द ईयर प्रोवाइड किए. अच्छा, बट इफ आई वांट टू डू द टैक्स बेस्ड कैलकुलेशन, दिस इज अ हेडेक नाउ. If I want to do the tax based calculation, what is my debtors currently appearing? My debtors, where are these? They are currently appearing at what? 2 crore 19 lakh 10,000. 2 crore 19 lakh 10,000. Acha, are they after deducting provision for bad debts as per books or before deducting? After. Acha, in the books, how much provision has already been created till date? If you go to see bad debt provision of 45 lakh 50. is created which relates to two debtors. तो बुक्स में तो दोनों का पूरा प्रोविजन क्रिएट किया. फॉर द ईयर यू माइट हैव क्रिएटेड ओनली 17,50,000 बट टिल डेट यू हैव क्रिएटेड फॉर द एंटायर 45 lakhs. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? So tax base is amount appearing as per tax balance sheet. As per tax balance sheet you will say plus 4550. ये तो बुक्स में था बट माइनस प्रोविजन एज पर इनकम टैक्स टिल डेट. अच्छा, टिल डेट इनकम टैक्स में कितना प्रोविजन है? 14 प्लस 3,50,000 दैट इज 17,50,000. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? एंड हेंस दिस इज 17,50,000. 2 crore 1910 plus 4550 minus 1750. This is 2 crore 47 lakh 10,000. जैसे तैसे धक्का मार मार के अपने पहुंचे. पहले देखते हैं धक्का सही हुआ है कि नहीं. So over here, if you go to see, you are adding back 17,50,000 of bad debt provision. Mark this as important. This is something which I definitely want you to revise. नीचे you have been given various adjustments as well. So you have bad debt provision 1750. तो ये तो सही हुआ. Add back less tax allowance for bad debts 11,90,000. अनफॉर्चुनेटली ये थोड़े लाइंस आपको ऊपर अलाइनमेंट में गड़बड़ हो गया. Just for these items. So this is 11,90,000. Is that also correct? सर हमको तो वही नहीं पता किया किया. So this is 17,50,000. We have added back and then said additional provision in the current year would have been 8,40,000 and 3,50,000. This is nothing but 8,40,000 additionally in the current year and 3,50,000 also additionally in the current year. So ये हमने less कर दिया. So my current tax impact has been correctly taken. Now we go to question number 25. Trade receivables in my books is 2 crore 19 lakh 10. वो तो सेम है. इनकम टैक्स में कितना है? 2 crore 4710. कहाँ से आया? Well, 2 crore 4710 would be probably 2 crore 19 adding back till date whatever is the provision for bad debt, subtracting till date what is the provision as per income tax, and hence you will get this. Ultimately whatever is the bad debt will be allowed as a deduction. Books has allowed you full deduction. Income tax has not yet allowed you, but eventually 20, 30, 50 karte karte income tax will allow you. So is this difference temporary? Yes, because of which in income tax you will get a deduction in the future years. You have not yet received the entire deduction. You will receive deduction in the future years, and hence is it a deductible temporary difference or taxable? Deductible. ये अगर अपन ना भी सोचे, ये अपने ना भी सोचे तो we will have to remember the rule. We will say as per books the carrying value is 2 crore 19. As per income tax, the carrying value is 2 crore 47. That means tax base is greater, carrying value is lower. Answer is in the same direction. Asset gives rise to asset. Logically, now that you see, ये पूरा आपको flow बनाता है. That is why अगर अपन लास्ट में देखें तो लॉजिक अगर आपको इंटरेस्ट है तो क्वेश्चन बहुत अच्छी तरीके से समझाता है. लाइक इफ यू गो टू सी bad debt, full loss is given in books, income tax is giving you slowly 20, then another 30, then another 50. So you're saying deduction will be availed in the future. It's a temporary difference. And if deduction will be availed, that is a deductible temporary difference, will give rise to a deferred tax asset, and hence for this difference of 28 lakhs, you are having at the rate 32% a DTA. Are we clear with this? आगे बढ़े? चलो. We are not even halfway through. 10 adjustments में अपन 4 पे पहुंचे. So here, point 5. H Limited created a provision for inventory. Now, see, these are the questions which may actually land up in your integrated case study paper 6 type of questions. It's a classic integration between FR and tax. Nothing like it. So if you look at paper 6 case study, it is multidisciplinary. This is multidisciplinary case study, right? You have multiple things which are coming. जहाँ पे tax law का भी आपको question 24 is tax law. Question 26 is books of accounts, Ind AS. दोनों का एक साथ impact आ रहा है. So these are the type of questions, and वहाँ पे तो यार ऐसे questions आ सकते हैं in multidisciplinary. So it's less important for an FR person. I mean less बोले तो adjustment wise it is important. Entirely, I don't see it coming in an FR paper, but it can, like these adjustments can help you in decoding a much more complex, smaller question as well. H created a provision for inventory obsolescence in accordance with Ind AS 2. जैसे cost और NRV whichever is lower होता, तो we said obsolescence है, so probably there is some NRV which is falling. New provision created during 17-18 is 3,78,000. Total provision is 6,30,000. Being a general provision, it is not tax deductible. अच्छा, it is not tax deductible now. But जब ये inventory बिकेगा at a loss, will income tax give you a deduction? Will yes. So what will we do for the purpose of tax calculation? What will we do? Will we add back provision for inventory obsolescence? अच्छा, what will we add back? The entire 6,30,000 or only the profit in the current year? Current year, how much is that? 378, perfect. However, when we want to calculate the tax base for the inventory, अभी सोच के करना पड़ेगा. This is for the inventory. अच्छा, how much is the inventory that you see in your balance sheet? किधर गया यार? 1,06,40,000. Do you think this is after or before? अच्छा, after only 3,78,000 or entire 6,30,000? So what will you do? Add how much? 6,30,000. So if you do 1,06,40,000 plus 6,30,000, this is what? 1,12,70,000. So if you look at your tax base working, this is 1,12,70,000. Conceptually, is there a difference? But is that a temporary difference? Yes. How is it temporary? अरे books में deduction मिल गया 378 in the current year, some other deduction in the earlier year. Income tax has not given you deduction. Why? Inventory is not yet sold. But the moment it is sold at a loss, income tax will give you that deduction. That loss will be booked in income tax. Books में तो already booked है. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? And as a result, this is a deductible temporary difference which will help you in paying lesser tax in the future years. तो ये आपको create करके देगा एक DTA. As you can see over here, 6,30,000 DTA. In our rule, carrying value of inventory, which is an asset, is lower than the tax base. Answer is in the same direction. बराबर है? This question has 10 small questions inside it in its own right. ये जैसे अपना याद है अपने क्वेश्चन नंबर 6, क्वेश्चन नंबर 10 पढ़ा, जहाँ पे पॉइंट ए, पॉइंट बी, पॉइंट सी, अनअर्न्ड रेवेन्यू, 1 point was on loans, हर एक पॉइंट एक अलग क्वेश्चन था. इन दिस केस यू कैन बी पुट वन पॉइंट फ्रॉम हियर एंड बी आस्क्ड इन अ रेगुलर क्वेश्चन, एंड वहां पे आप डिटेल्ड वर्किंग करोगे, कैरिंग वैल्यू, टैक्स बेस, difference into tax rate, etc. Okay, we will read further. So now we are halfway through the question. किधर चले गए? अच्छा, good adjustment. Government grants are not taxable. Full government grant received in 1718 is included in the balance sheet. So if I see the balance sheet, what is the balance sheet? Government grant deferred income of 14 lakhs. According to you, what is the entry passed for the government grant? Bank account debit to deferred income, and that deferred income is lying where? Balance sheet. First of all, you guys tell me, for the purpose of tax calculation, do I need to add back or subtract something? In this tax calculation, has the government grant of 14 lakhs gone in our accounting profit 59 lakh 50 calculation? No, because it has gone directly in the balance sheet. So it has not gone in the P&L account. It is अगर वो balance sheet में गया है, question clearly बोल रहा है, it has not gone in the P&L account. Bank account debit to grant, it has fully been taken in the balance sheet. Question tells you that. अच्छा, should it go for income tax calculation? Why should it not go? Non-taxable, and hence वो income tax calculation में भी नहीं जाएगा. So tell me, in this working, should you make any adjustment? You will not make any adjustment. It has not gone in the P&L. It has not gone in the P&L. It should not go in the P&L. It has not gone in the taxable profit calculation. Well, it should not go in the taxable profit calculation. अच्छा, अगर ये P&L में गया होता and it was not taxable, then you would have reduced it. You would have said मेरा P&L higher है, but it is not taxable, reduce it. But अगर वो P&L में गया ही नहीं है, आप बोल रहे हो amortize, where is it given that it is amortized? The question very categorically tells you that the full government grant is appeared in the balance sheet. There is no amortization. If there was an amortization, yes, the amortization you will reverse. But question number एकदम categorically बोल रहा है that the full grant is sitting in the balance sheet, so nothing has gone in the P&L. Well, nothing should go to the P&L. And as a result, will you have to make any adjustments? Yes or no? Very nice. There will be no adjustments. At least you don't. अच्छा, यहाँ पे अगर बोला रहता it is taxable, then what would you have done? हाँ, then भले वो balance sheet में गया हो. For tax calculation, we will add it in that working. Are we clear with this? अच्छा, now comes another problem. भाई अपन tax base and deferred tax के working में जाते हैं. In my books of accounts, there is an underlying liability of 14 lakhs. Carrying value as per Ind AS is 14 lakhs appearing in the balance sheet of an underlying liability. Tax base, one can always argue कि भाई क्या लेना चाहिए? Well, if this had gone in the tax balance sheet as well, I mean, first of all, do I need to do any calculations over here? In the books, it is appearing at 14. कोई बोलेगा income tax में 0, कोई बोलेगा income tax में 14, कुछ भी हो. Is this taxable? If it is not taxable, it is not relevant for current tax. It is not even relevant for deferred tax. Is this ever going to create a temporary difference? Answer is no. Sir, why no? Arey, because in the future years, even if this goes, I mean, it is not going to be taxable. How can there be a deferred tax if there is no current tax impact in the first place? For there to be a deferred tax, there has to be a current tax impact in the first place. Is there any current tax impact? No. So it will not impact current tax. Well, it will not even impact deferred tax. Are we clear with this? So if you go to see the workings over here, you can see that when we look at deferred grant, carrying amount may be 14 lakhs, tax base one can argue is 0. Why? Because tax के लिए there is no base, no deduction, no income tax. तो कोई base ही नहीं है tax के लिए. यार सर तो difference आ गया. अरे but that difference, if I go to see deferred income, 14 lakhs, 14 lakhs, 14 lakhs excluded. There is no deferred tax liability. It is a other than temporary difference. If something is not taxable, indemnification asset में आपको यही किया था, if you remember, we said भाई indemnification asset taxable ही नहीं है, then it can't go in the current tax calculation. Well, it can't even go in the deferred tax calculation. If the question tells you government grant is not taxable, then it can't impact the current tax. Well, it can't even impact the deferred tax. अरे बराबर क्या नहीं? We go to point 7. In the year 1718, H increased a liability for product warranty costing 1,75,000. This is during the year. Product warranty costs are not tax deductible until the company actually pays the claims. Claims paid in 1718 amounted to 2,17,000. Acha, what have I done? I have created a provision for warranty. My journal entry must be P&L account debit to provision for warranty. Income tax does not recognize a provision. It says जब भी payment होगा तभी record करेंगे. In books, when the payment happens, it is provision account debit to bank. But in income tax, the entry is P&L account debit to bank. So in my current year, how much has gone in the provision for warranty? What will I do? Provision for warranty. What will I do? 1,75,000 we will add back. What will I subtract? Warranty claim paid. How much is that? 2,17,000. That takes it for the current year. But यार balance sheet में देखते हैं. Can I say liability for warranty, product warranty is 5 lakhs? Sir, वो तो 178 ही था. 178 was as on date. I mean, 178 is for the year. 5,60,000 is the total warranty as on date. So if I look at my tax base and carrying value, let's say my carrying value is 5,60,000. I'm assuming this is after everything. After current year provision, after payment in the everything. What will be the tax base on this? 0. 2,17,000 तो pay हो गया यार. How can that be tax? Tax base is the amount appearing in tax balance sheet. In tax balance sheet, we are saying nothing. Payment on payment basis. 2,17,000 का तो entry pass कर दिया रहेगा. Expense account debit to bank. Books में entry आएगा. Provision account debit to bank. Tax balance sheet 0. Sir, 5,60,000. हाँ, 5,60,000 income tax will give you deduction when you actually pay them. Currently, they have not yet been paid. So it is not claimed as deduction. Conceptually, 5,60,000 books में खर्चा मिल चुका है over the years. Income tax में अब तक नहीं मिला है, but it will be received. When will it be received? When future claims are paid. So conceptually, this is a deferred tax asset. Why? Because it's a deductible difference. Whenever you pay it, you will get a deduction. So it will help you in saving tax in the future. As per our rule, carrying value is 5,60,000, tax base is 0. For a liability, if the carrying value is greater, the answer is opposite. That's a DTA. So if I look at the working over here, किधर गया? Provision for warranty 5,60,000, 0 difference, it is deductible. ऐसा नहीं कि भैया tax exempt है. It is deductible and hence there will be a DTA. Deductible बोले तो deferred tax asset, taxable बोले तो deferred tax liability. Wherever you have seen the word taxable, it's a DTL. Wherever you see deductible, it's a DTL. 2,17,000 मिल गया है. 5,60,000 is after that. 5,60,000 is the balance sheet value. It is after everything. तो हाँ, तो company has paid it. So maybe your starting provision was 7 lakhs and उसमें से less होके अभी 5,60,000 बचा. So that has already been done. It's an entry which has already been passed in the current year.
Sir, we are just when every year tax base will be 0 only, no?
0. During the year, H introduced healthcare benefits for the employees. Acha, they have been introduced during the year, which means will there be anything in the opening? No. Whatever has happened in the current year only. The expenses are allowable for tax purposes only when the benefits are paid. But in line with Ind AS 19, you have recognized the profit and loss when the employee provides service. ये gratuity जैसा भी हो सकता है. By gratuity, you recognize expense as and when the employee renders service. But income tax says when you pay the gratuity, you claim deduction. Is that a temporary difference again? That is a temporary difference. Achha, they have been introduced during the current year. So if I open my balance sheet, I see a current liability of medical benefits of 24,50,000. ये पूरा का पूरा 24,50,000 कभी create हुआ रहेगा? Current year only. You must have passed entry medical expenses account debit to provision for medical expenses. Entirely in the current year. Achha, for income tax, do I get a deduction for that? No. So what will I do? Add back. Provision for medical expenses. How much is that? 24,50. Achha, if I look at my carrying value is the balance sheet value of the liability. This is 24,50. What is the tax base? 0. Because tax balance sheet में तो कोई entry आया ही नहीं. And hence is the difference of 24,50,000. Provision having a carrying value which is greater, answer is opposite. So this will create a asset, a DTA at the rate of 32%. Sir, why should it be a DTA? Well, if in the next year this amount is paid, income tax will give you deduction. Medical expense account debit to bank, books में deduction नहीं मिलेगा. क्यों? Provision account debit to bank. And as a result, it's a deductible temporary difference. So if I go to see in the next question, यहाँ पर 560 and 0 हो गया. Where is this healthcare benefit? 2450 and 0. Carrying value is 2450 as per the Ind AS balance sheet. Tax base is 0. And hence if I take the difference, 2450 is 0. This is deductible and hence यहाँ पे भी DTA बनेगा at the rate of 32%. अरे बराबर क्यों नहीं? क्वेश्चन खत्म होने का नाम ही नहीं ले रहा. So this is point 9. Penalties towards violation of laws included in operating expense amount to 63,000. They are never going to be deductible. So what will you do? Add back penalties. How much is that? अच्छा, what is this? 63. Penalties towards violation include 63. अच्छा, balance sheet में कुछ provision for penalty दिख रहा है क्या? No, that means it must have been paid. So is there a carrying value appearing in the Ind AS balance sheet? No. Is there a tax base? No. In any case, there is other than temporary difference. Will that impact? Will that impact my deferred tax calculations in any way? No. Deferred tax तभी impact होता है if it is a temporary difference. Point 10. Tax law allows to deduct expenses for petrol only up to 1,40,000 per vehicle per year. H had 4 vehicles in 17-18 and the total petrol expenses amounted to 7,21,000. अच्छा, so I must have claimed, I mean in my books of accounts मैं थोड़ी ना कोई limit लेता हूँ, मैं तो जितना पेट्रोल का खर्चा वो ले लेता हूँ. So over here I must have claimed petrol expenses of how much? Sorry, 7,21,000. I must have claimed a petrol expense of 7,21,000. I will add it back minus eligible petrol expense. This is 1,40,000 into 4. This is 5,60,000. Acha, for the remaining, will a deduction ever be allowed? No. So is that a temporary difference other than temporary? Do I need to create any deferred tax working? No. And as a result, this should ideally give me my working. But अगर मैं पूरा बैलेंस शीट देखो, I've taken most of the items, but not all of them. Like investment in subsidiary, कोई adjustment ही नहीं था. Then carrying value tax base has to be the same. Similarly, cash, कोई adjustment ही नहीं है. Carrying value tax base has to be the same. Share capital, accumulated profits, revaluation, etc. There's some deferred tax liability and everything. Trade payables, carrying value tax base will be the same, and that is it. So if all is well, you will calculate and find 5950. I hope all is well. So this is 5950 minus 7210 plus कितना आ रहा है? आपने किया टोटल? आप ये वाला ही किया ना टोटल? So 93 come again? 80,000. Let us see if that is actually tying up. तो ये आपका 93 lakh 80. अच्छा, this is provision for warranty ऊपर चले जाता है. I mean, this is actually 2 lakh 17. वो last ये 3 में unfortunately there is some alignment issue. This is provision for warranty. And then सब जोड़ जाड़ के 93 lakh 80. अच्छा, again that application comes. 93 lakh 80 will be taxed at what rate? बच्चे यहाँ पे फ्लो में 32% लेके आएंगे. But 32 तो future year का. This will be taxed at the rate of 30. But when I do deferred tax calculation, that is taxed at what rate? 32. Deferred tax is future deduction, future tax. 32. Current tax. So this is your entry and this will be your total. Deferred tax asset, deferred tax liability, sub jod jad ke, this is your number. A very good question if I were to revise my paper 6, integrated case studies. A very good base, I mean even for integrated case studies, at least from FR perspective, and I have seen, in my opinion, the multidisciplinary case studies that have come in the past. We still don't have integrated business case study, but we do have the past multidisciplinary case studies, the paper 6F or 6E which was there. In my opinion, that is exactly the same integrated case study. Generally, what institute does is, it asks you big questions. And within that different paragraphs are pertaining to different items. So one paragraph will be linked to FR, another paragraph will be linked to tax, another paragraph will be linked to, let us say, your financial management, and according to that you will have to solve. Most of the questions that I have seen don't have inter-case linkage. They are independent paragraphs. वो दिखेगा आपको इतना बड़ा केस, उसमें 5 पैराग्राफ हो गए. One paragraph will be exclusively linked to FR. One paragraph will be exclusively linked to your tax. One paragraph will be exclusive. So cross para linkage नहीं होता. Generally, as institute evolves, by the time we will clear, hopefully, वो क्रॉस लिंकेज वाले क्वेश्चंस ज्यादा आएंगे. अभी के लिए क्रॉस लिंकेज वाले क्वेश्चंस बनाना ही मुश्किल है, बिकॉज यू नीड अ पर्सन विद मल्टीडिसिप्लिनरी नॉलेज. अगर मेरे को कोई बोलेगा मैं एफआर का केस बनाऊंगा, बट किसी को मल्टीडिसिप्लिनरी नॉलेज चाहिए, विच इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू गेट, एंड वेरी फ्यू केसेस, बट एक आधा केस आ जाएगा. दिस इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ अ केस वेयर देयर इज अ क्रॉस लिंकेज बिटवीन, लेट अस से, 2 डिफरेंट टॉपिक्स, एंड यहाँ पे कोई एक और भी एंगल आ सकता है. सो these are the type of cases. And if you want to practice, you can practice past GFRS cases. अगर आपको FR के cases का practice चाहिए, you can past GFRS cases. That will be very helpful. Maybe if you want practice for DT, you can look at past international tax cases. जो actual case studies है, I'm reasonably confident to some extent that will be helpful for your main exams as well. Yes, okay. So over here, this is question 26. Then we look at question number 27. Badaiyo, you have somehow managed to go through those questions. We'll go to question number 27. Again, this is from an institute example. They have solved it in a particular way. Some students have a problem. I think this should be fairly easily manageable otherwise. In 2012, an entity has accounting profit in its own jurisdiction, that is country A, of 1500. In 2011, this was 2000. And in country B of 1500, in 2011, this was 500. The tax rate is 30% in country A and 20% in country B. In country A, the expenses of 100, earlier it was 200, are not tax deductible for tax purposes. Show the reconciliation. Now, when I say show the reconciliation, what is happening? Let us say I look at 2 different years. Aja, first is 2012. What is the total profit appearing in the books of the company as a whole? वो country A हो, country B हो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? What is the profits? If I look at question number 27, what is the accounting profit? In 2012, this is 1500 from country A, another 1500 from country B, but sub जोड़ जाड़ के 3000. अच्छा, you are a company whose own jurisdiction is country A. What will a reader of reconciliation? याद है अपने question 16 में भी पढ़ा था. What will a reader do? He will say tax based on accounting profit. He will say कि देखो मेरे लिए in my income statement, अच्छा, do I show country wise income statement or do I show total income statement? Total. So a reader will see 3000 and he will directly apply the rate prevailing in his jurisdiction. What is the rate prevailing in his jurisdiction? 30%. country A में क्या चल रहा है? 30%. So a reader will say ideally 900 का टैक्स आना चाहिए. But will the tax actually be 900? No. Why? Because out of this 3000, 1500 is earned in country B, and in country B the tax rate is how much? So over here, अच्छा, this is not a temporary difference. ये 20 यानी 20 ही रहने वाला. So over here you can say minus lower tax on country B income. Acha, how much is the country B income? And how much is your reduction in tax? So this is 30 minus 20, that is equal to 10. So ये कितना आ रहा है अपने को? 150. So your actual tax expense will be lower. This is not a temporary difference. There is no deferred tax over here. Acha, other than that, is there anything else? In country A, expenses of 100 are not deductible for tax purposes. They are not deductible. which means will this increase the tax or reduce the tax? Increase. So I'll say there will be a higher tax. So there will be tax impact on non-deductible expenses. This is same as that charitable donation case in question number 16. So over here, this is what? Sorry, 100 into 30%. अच्छा add करेंगे less करेंगे? Add, because that will increase my tax burden. In my books I am taking 3000 के base पे, but 3000 में 100 is deducted. 100 या 200 है क्या है? 100, 200 was in the last year, ठीक है? 100 is deducted, but for tax purposes that will not be allowed, and hence that will increase my tax burden. So over here my tax expense would appear to what? This is 900 minus 150 plus 30. This is what? 780. If I do a similar working in 2011, country A में कितना कमाया last year? 2000. And B? So this is 2500. Acha, on 2500 last year the tax was what? 30%, and hence this is 750. Still in the last year, when I look at country B, 500 का profit है into 10%. That is how much? 50. That will help me in saving tax. And 200 का deduction है, which is not obtained, into 30%. So this is 60. And as a result, if I do this working, this is probably 760 as my tax expense. So if I review this, 780 and 760. बराबर